All right, tell me about what's going on here.
Hi, Colin DeFrance here. We are nearing the final stages of doing the board and batten cladding, the exterior of this barn-style garage loft. It's been a long project getting to where we are, so it's nice to see it finally coming together. What I wanted to do today is share a little bit about the technique that I've been using here for the board and batten. The boards I acquired from a local Mennonite mill about an hour from here. So these are actual rough-hewn 1x12 boards cut to size. And the technique that I'm using to get this color that you see, this beautiful dark, rich, natural wood color, is an ancient Japanese technique called Shou Sugi. And it's a method that involves burning the wood in a controlled way, so that it ends up actually, interestingly enough, making the wood after the treatment fire resistant, as well as insect, rot, and to a certain degree weather resistant. And kind of the way it works is you're basically burning the exterior part of the cellulose of the wood structure and closing the cells of the wood. So it makes it unavailable for insects and for oxidation, for basically all those chemical processes that result in deterioration of the wood over time. And of course it leaves you with this beautiful rich color. It's actually fairly easy to do, but there are some tips and techniques which we'll share with you in a few moments.
All right, so walk me through step one.
Okay, so here we are at our workstation now, which I've set up for prepping the boards. Just a couple of details that are important. This particular construction required about 160 of these 1x12 by 8 foot long boards, which I got from a local Mennonite mill. And because they're from that mill, they're rough hewn, the edges, ends aren't cut square. So one of the first things you need to do is lay out your wood and make sure that all the ends are cut, measure it all up. When I first started doing this, I just laid a ton of boards down and I just burned them all, and I very quickly learned that it's a very inefficient way to do it. So particularly on a day like this, which is really hot, it helps if you plan a little bit and you just say, well, this is what I'm going to work on for the next hour or two until I need a break, and you work in little lots. So I'm doing 5 boards here, and I've already cut one of them, which is going around that window that we have on the gable end of the building. So with the wood, the main thing you want to make sure is that it is, when you get them fresh from the mill, they're usually wet right off a log. So I took the time to actually stack them and prep them in my garage, giving them an opportunity with separate slats underneath pieces of wood to allow the air to circulate so that the boards could dry a little. And again, on a particularly hot day like this, it actually helps if you can lay the boards out in advance. Let the sun do a little bit of the work for you. Otherwise, what I found on a wet board, one of these things to burn them would take maybe 4 or 5 minutes, but if you allow the sun and some prep time storing them before you actually work the boards, you can cut that down to a couple of minutes a board. So really is a big time saver. The other thing you want to be sure of is make sure the boards on the side you're going to burn are free from defects and things that might take away from the finished look or from the weather resistance of the board. For example, this one here, you can see that one still has a knot. The knot fell out on that. So for this board, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to use this side, which is a little cleaner. Okay. The other thing is you want to make sure you're working on a surface, for obvious reasons, that's fire resistant. And this gravel driveway, which eventually will be concrete, is perfect for that. Okay, so we've prepped our wood here, and we're now ready for the Shou Sugi stage. So just a couple of important details I'll share before we actually start burning away. The particular unit that I'm using is a 500,000 BTU torch. It's basically a version of a plumber's propane torch on steroids. This particular model here I purchased from Canadian Tire, local hardware store, common in Canada. And it's a very simple one. It attaches to a standard propane barbecue tank, and it's got a separate valve here to control the flow of the gas. Originally, I had purchased one online that I thought was pretty fancy. It had a little lever on it and one of those piezo igniters, which was very handy. But the problem I found with the thing, after about a week or two, it just died and the little lever didn't work. So I think this is an example here for the $100, the less is more. And this one has not been a problem at all, and has a slightly bigger head on it, and just seems overall a little bit better in terms of its performance. So again, definitely recommend getting the simpler torch with the single valve on it. The other thing that's important, obviously, you're working with some high intensity flames here, and it's important just for safety reasons to have on standby here a little hose with water. I haven't had to use it, but it's there if you need it. So our wood is all cut. The other thing that's important is when you're actually doing your burning, I like to lay them out fairly close with a gap in between, so that as I'm burning one, it actually will start to burn the next board. So again, it just increases your efficiency. And once we get started here, I mean, this thing is really loud, so you won't be able to hear my voice, which is why I'm sort of talking through the technique. It's easier to do it systematically, just working from board to board. These are the actual boards. The battens go on top, so it's not critical that you seal the sides of these boards, that you burn the sides. But for the battens, definitely where those sides of the battens end up showing on the structure, you have to burn the sides as well. So let's get started. Let's burn some wood. So there we have it. We've burned the wood. And what you may have noticed is that some of the boards that have the knots actually don't burn as evenly as the rest of the wood. And this is partly because the knots are more dense and the cells are more compact. So one of the things I like to do is I wear these gloves, which I just purchased from Home Depot. And they have like a rubber surface. They're conveniently black. So number one, when I'm handling the boards, they do provide a little protection from a hot board and also keep your hands clean. But more importantly, the other thing I use these for is that you can take the board and rub the part of it that's black into the knot and blend it in a little bit. Before I actually put the boards up, I'll do a little rub down here. You can actually do it when you pin the boards onto the structure if you want to save a little bit more time. Some people like the look of the richer orange color to the knot, and that's fine. So it's really a personal preference. The other thing is that I've burned these boards to a fairly even consistency, so you can still see the rough-hewn marks on it. You can still see a good amount of the wood grain. If I were to keep burning, and you see a little bit of it here, it actually starts to crackle, and you almost end up with this kind of a snakeskin look, which again is something else that some people desire and like to have. So depending on the degree of how much you burn it, you can get that effect as well. So there we have it. So basically we're ready to attach these boards to our building.
What about, is there a way to get a slightly different look?
Well, yeah, I mean, the opposite of burning the boards to the extent where you get that snakeskin effect is to just lightly burn them, which creates a more natural, almost a stained look to the wood. So on this gable end here of our structure, the opposite end, it's almost complete. It just doesn't have the vertical battens in place, but you can see the detail on the top. I've just oriented the boards horizontally, and for that lighter color, I just gave it a kind of quick once-over with the torch, lightly burning the surface. So in the end, you end up achieving something that would have required a special stain. And here you're doing it completely naturally. And again, it has a similar effect in helping to preserve the wood by using the Shugibon technique. So there you have it.